Hey everybody, John the Other here, obviously. And as you might have heard, Louis C.K. is performing again. And I say, good for him. And if I thought for a minute that he would hear anything I said, I would advise in the strongest possible terms that he must, and with no apology, continue to do comedy. But of course there is a contingent of the public, possibly a very small contingent, but certainly loud, who assert that Louis C.K. is not to be allowed to return to the comedy stage or even to public life. They say he's not allowed to make a living. Now, nobody's quite calling for him to be killed yet, but it's clear he's not to be allowed to exist. And before we go any further, let's consider what is actually being demanded. Based on the howling of the Twitter and the Facebook mob, people, not just Louis C.K., a lot of people are on an ongoing basis to be expelled from society, banished from their professions, reduced to poverty, and threatened with imprisonment. And we, the public, the bystanders, we are not permitted to question the truthfulness or consider the evidence of accusations against these people. No, we should just believe accusers. In fact, we should participate in the destruction of other people's lives because somebody on Twitter or a failed celebrity says so. I'll repeat that. The demand is that we agree to the destruction of an arbitrary number of people's lives because a social media mob or an over-the-hill actress demands it. I don't think I need to explain my opinion of this so-called ethic. But let's return to the question of whether the permanent denial of the basic right to make a living or participate in society is a just punishment for anything. And while we're at it, let's remember what, in the case of Louis C.K., he is actually banished from society for doing. What was Louis banished for? Well, for sexually exposing himself to a woman after he asked for and was granted consent by her. That's right. Louis C.K. asked for consent, then exposed himself sexually to a woman after she said yes. And although it's not the central point of this discussion, I'm going to say clearly that consent as it is conceived of by feminists is a falsehood. And should you buy into the lie, also a trap. A trap in which you play their game and you will still have your life ruined even after you've checked all the idiot checkboxes and danced that asinine anti-human kabuki dance to please those advocates. I will return to this in more detail in a future video. But Louis is apparently not allowed to step back onto the stage and try to make people happy. He apparently hasn't served his sentence yet, which begs the question, what is his sentence? Some people are making the argument that the only thing he's suffered is the minor and temporary inconvenience of the loss of spotlight. Now, this argument seems to be based on the idea that being publicly and internationally shamed and humiliated is not any kind of hardship. That this is not a grave and severe penalty that might lead to lifelong trauma. No, it's just a minor lull in the spotlight. That's it. Don't worry your pretty head. But of course this reading also trades on the idea that a man whose comedic career was built on a deep understanding of human emotions is not a man who feels human emotions when subjected to an international campaign of shaming. I'm going to suggest that Louis C.K. is a reminder to us of why in civilized countries we no longer have public hangings. It's because we like them too much. We are each as civilized as we have to be when we're standing on our own name, but you put us in groups with the anonymity of the crowd, and we, so-called civilized people, reveal ourselves to be amoral, murderous apes. And we, modern monkey hominids, now inhabit a digital landscape which appears to have been finely tuned to tickle and magnify our most impulsive and psychopathic tendencies. But we're supposed to agree that the total lack of goodwill, the complete lack of forgiveness, and the casual and flippant termination of other people's public identities based on salt from the social media mob is somehow positive. That's a healthy step towards a better civilization. We're supposed to mouth the words that Me Too is important and good. Because I guess, throwing other people's lives away based on the mob's demand for a hanging, that's what we're going to pretend is a good thing because women, right? Now, I don't actually like Louis C.K. I don't care for his comedy. But the question is, should he be allowed back onto a stage to tell us jokes? If you think the answer to that is no, it may be that you are a bully or an aspiring tyrant. It might be that you lack a basic sense of decency or justice, and I'm sorry, but there's no nice way to say that. And it might also be that something like decency or a sense of justice actually matters. That is to say, justice more measured than the bloodlust of a perennially outraged recreational grievance class. Maybe that's important and worth protecting. And if you think so, you can add your weight to that cause by donating to the Lighthouse Project, which is a Canadian non-profit organization helping to protect the rights of the falsely accused, from which there are Patreon and PayPal links in the description of this video. But bullies and Twitter outrage mobs and theatrically offended D-list celebrities are not stunning or brave. They're just bullies. And it's time that we started saying so loudly and repeatedly. Thanks very much for listening, and as always, have a lovely day.